Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me along today. I hope that you're all well. I know that some of you will still be in lockdown. Some of you will be coming out of lockdown. Some of you may be back to normal, and I'm presuming that you're getting your football back together. I'm hoping that this session today will provoke some thought for you around your own coaching journey and who you are and what you want to be as a coach. You can see that I've titled this webinar today, Coaching Mastery Framework. And I just want to give you a little bit of background on where this has come from. So I've been coaching elite level football for over 25 years now, coupled along with being a teacher and a head teacher. And during that journey, I'm not sure that I was ever the best coach, no matter how much I was aspiring to always become a better coach. And it was only really in the last couple of years when I started to do research around teaching and learning that I looked at coaching mastery in football. And you know, there wasn't really very much literature. There's a little bit of literature around coaching mastery in wider sports, and the Olympic Association have done some stuff there. There's wider coaching journals and research, of course, but there was nothing like what I'm going to present to you today. So I'm hoping that it's going to provoke some thought, but the title really, Coaching Mastery, was born out of me trying to be better at what I do and enabling my own personal growth, not because I wanted to create a better winning environment for the players that I coach, but more so because I wanted to unlock their potential. I think we can all name those players that have gone on to do good things in the game, but can we really identify those players that we've supported along the way that didn't quite make the elite level? So here we go. The aims of this session for today are to appreciate what I've called the 6 pillars of coaching mastery, and it's a non-linear model, I must stress that. And secondly, to help steer you on your learning journey and to provoke some thought around each of these 6 pillars. I've started with a definition around coaching mastery. So most of you will know what coaching is. It's about facilitating an individual, a person's learning or their development or their performance. And mastery obviously is about that comprehensive knowledge or that elite level skill within a particular domain or a particular sport or subject, obviously in this case football. So some of you will have heard of MasterChef, for example. That is obviously a chef that does wonderful things with ingredients and colors and textures and tastes and flavors. You may have heard historically of a master craftsman, somebody like a stonemason perhaps, who spent hours of deliberate practice becoming a top sculpture. So this really is in the same vein. What is it that we're doing as coaches to master our own subject? That is coaching. So this is what the framework looks like. And as I say, it's non-linear. So these are not in any sequential order. None of them really carry more weighting than the other, but each of them in their own right is part of a big jigsaw, which is open for debate and open for consideration. So take from this what you will, because these are based on my own readings, my own research over, as I say, 25 or 30 years in football coaching and education. So the first one really is around your identity. Who are you? This is really around setting, first of all, your own moral compass. Why is it that you coach? What is your mission? What are you hoping to get out of coaching? So are you a servant coach? Are you there to help the players and the individuals, the people that you serve day in and day out within coaching? Or are you there for some egotistical or selfish reasons? The starting point really has to be your appreciation and understanding of why you want to be a coach. Within this, we as coaches spend a lot of time thinking about what is our philosophy of coaching, what is our game model, you know, the in and out of possession and the transitions, what would be our tactical principles within the game around decision making and the actions that we want players to perform either individually as a unit or as the collective to help them solve game problems. And then around the holistic development, do we consider the physical element of the game? Do we consider the psychological or the mental side of the game? Do we consider the social elements that we're providing? How do we join all of those together to provide a worthwhile coaching experience? And also as a coach, obviously things move on very, very quickly, both within coaching and also within life. So do we as a coach commit to lifelong learning? And this is all about knowing yourself. And I believe that it's really, really important that we understand this, but within that, you need to understand the context. So we see a lot about professional football, we read a lot about professional elite football, but obviously you've got to dilute that, or you've got to mold that to the context within which you operate, whether that's adolescent, advanced, or whether that's younger players, or whether that's even beginners at the younger stage. And the reason that I say that is because children of today are different than children of yesteryear. So what is it as a coach that you understand about Generation Z or Generation Alpha? Because likely they are the players that we are coaching at the moment. And it's really important to understand that Generation Alpha children are rule breakers. They don't play by the rules. They think that rules can be stretched, rules can be changed, and new rules can be created. In other words, that life and life's opportunities for them become limitless. So as a coach, we need to keep adapting, and that's why lifelong learning and a commitment to that's really important. So that's the first pillar. And I'm just going to pause there now, just for you to have a moment's reflection, just to select one or two things out of what I've just said, to organize it in your own mind, and then to think about where you're going to integrate that into your coaching. So that's the first pillar, the moral compass, the coaching compass, the identity. That brings us to the second pillar now. And the second pillar is around the climate, the environment. As a coach, you are the leader of this group. You are the one who sets the temperature dial for this group of people that you're leading. So I want to start with the sort of this pillar here now with a question. And the question will be, how does what you present, the experience that you present as a coach, offer or enhance the people that you serve? What is it that you're offering that enhances their lives or their opportunities? So I want you to think about the environment that you create as a coach. Is it a fun, carefree environment where players get lots of freedom, their voice is heard, their voice is valued, they get choice, they get input into the sessions? Or is it very much coach-led? You make all of the decisions, you decide when the game's going to be played, you decide what the constraints are on that game. And the reason that I say that is because the environment needs to be one whereby all players can thrive. And I want you to consider that no matter how large the group of players or individuals are that you're coaching, they will all come from diverse backgrounds. So they will all have prior experiences, and some of them will have some great prior experiences, some of them will not have great prior experiences. So that connection, that ability for you to understand the individual, to support that individual emotionally, is really, really important. So you can see there that I talk about connecting with compassion. And this isn't just about fist pumps. This isn't just about knowing players' names, saying hello and saying goodbye. This is really a deep understanding of what do you know about this player. So all of your players will come with different experiences, as I've said, life experiences, and lots of them will come with what we call adverse childhood experiences. Now, adverse childhood experiences are catastrophic moments in a child's life from their household that add trauma to their lives. And that brings a level of toxicity to their metabolism. And that obviously means that they are unsure. It means that they don't trust people. It means that they are, in terms of fight or flight, they're more likely to fight or flee rather than stick around. So it's really important that you can build that connection with the players and not assume that every player is always in a good place. So do you know how much of a hard time some kids get at home, or how much of a hard time they get at school? Do you know what's going on in a child's life and why they've arrived late for training? And they don't need you moaning because they've arrived late for training. So you can see there's a great deal of player welfare and safeguarding and ethics that goes on around the environment that you create. But I just go back to something that Theodore Roosevelt said, and most of you will know this, that he said that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And if you can build those connections, build those relationships, you build trust, and then you're more likely to gain success as a coach, because players will then trust you and they will begin to learn. And if you do any reading around coaching environments and successful teams, all successful teams will tell you about the bond, the sense of belonging, the unique identity that the team has, or the club has, or that the players have within the dressing room. So again, I'm just going to stop there now. I'm just going to pause for thought. I'm going to give you an opportunity to select one or two things from what I've just said, organize it in your own mind, and then think about where you're going to integrate that into your own coaching. So that brings us to the end of the first two pillars. And the third pillar now is around fluency. And this is a really important pillar for me, and one not to be taken lightly. We hear about children's lifestyles, that lots of them lead to sedentary lifestyles, lots of them are obese, lots of them are into advanced technologies and do a lot of sitting down. So again, as a coach, you can't assume that children or players, young players, have gone through the child development process that you may have gone through. It's quite scary to see the number of children who can't ride a bike at a given age, or who struggle to swim, who don't have fundamental movement patterns because they've not had the experiences that maybe we had as younger people growing up. So this pillar really is about the coach understanding physical literacy and the importance of physical literacy. Those ABCs, the agility, the balance, the coordination, the fundamental movement patterns, age and stage of development, which is really, really important. We've all seen players that come onto a pitch that maybe the game passes them by, that they're not very confident or competent runners. They're not very confident or competent with the ball. So as coaches, how are we backfilling that? How are we making provision for that? I think it's really, really important to consider. So I would urge you to consider here within your club, within your team, is what place does ball manipulation play? What place do wider games like tag play in your coaching to develop those fundamentals, to develop those movement patterns, to develop the core football skills that players need? So as a coach, I would be thinking really about, stripping back the 10, the 12, the 20 different skills that may be on offer to a player within a game, and thinking about, okay, what three as a coach do I stand for my team? Or what three do I want this player to learn because of the position that they play in? So for example, as a coach, you might take the start point that you want to develop passing, dribbling, and turning as three key core skills within your group. And the reason for that is because if a player can pass a ball, then they're in the game. If a player can receive the ball and turn out of pressure and find a pass, then they can contribute to the game. If a player can beat an opponent left or right and then get a shot or a cross or seek a pass, then they're in the game and they start to gain some success. And that level of success is really, really important, because that builds confidence. And then again, the player is going to feel part of the group. The player is going to stick around rather than dropping out. And also consider the progression of those skills. So if passing, if dribbling and turning are the 3 core skills that you're going to promote within your group, what do they look like at different ages or different stages? So if you're coaching, say, 7-year-olds, what passing or dribbling or turning expectations would you have for them, rather than if you were coaching 9-year-olds or 13-year-olds or 16-year-olds per se? So again, something to consider there around the skills that you want your players to develop, and what do they look like at the age and stage of development of the group that you're coaching. So again, I'm just going to pause there for thought, allow you to select 1 or 2 things that I've just spoken about there, and think about how you're going to integrate that into your coaching. So that's the 3rd pillar, fluency. And then we move on to the 4th pillar now, which is intelligence or game intelligence. So as a coach now, obviously, you're on the grass, you're on the field with your group, and you obviously have got some competency, some skills of organisation and what this looks like on the field here now. So the first thing, obviously, to consider is this session itself. What does this look like? How are you planning as a coach? What are your planning principles? We talk about principles of play, but I would urge you to think about, what are your planning principles? What is it that you are trying to achieve as a coach? So, for example, you might start with the end in mind as a principle. So if we're talking about, maybe, let's say for argument's sake, some attacking and creating of chances, you may start with that as the end point over a series of coaching sessions. So I would urge you to think about considering maybe 3 weeks or 4-week blocks worth of planning, and thinking about, okay, for the next 3 weeks or the next 4 weeks, we're going to be thinking about creating chances, and what does that look like? And build with the end in mind. And then when you're thinking about what that would look like on the field, you might think about those game-related practices. Now, we've all heard here about the game is the teacher. Well, you can't just play the game and expect players to learn the game. So you've got to manage what this game looks like, different types of games. So this would be thinking about the whole part whole method. How do you fragment the game and take fractals of the game to still coach the bigger game? So you've got to be faithful as the coach to the game of football. In other words, your practices should look like and feel like the game. So if we think of it as a jigsaw, and we were to take a piece out of a jigsaw and put the piece back in the jigsaw, your mini practice needs to be a part of the bigger game. So the representation of that needs to be real to the game. So are you considering about the conditions of the game? So for example, are there conditions for the defending team or the attacking team? Are there targets for the defending team as much as there are for the attacking team? Is it balanced? So if I'm attacking 8 versus 4, say, is that real in the game? Would I really see that? And then obviously variation. Players don't like to do the same practices all the time, but you've still got a theme that you're trying to coach. So how do you vary your practices, making it real to the game by changing the dynamics of that game, whether it's the numbers of the game, the shape of the game, the number of goals, the targets? And often the best people to ask here are the players themselves, because they're very curious, they're very innovative, and they will understand how to change and manipulate the rules so that your themes are still coming out. Communication in this pillar is really important. And what does that look like? And I would urge you here to think about the language that you use. So we've all got our specific language that we like to use on a football field. You know, so if we talk about defending, we hear phrases like squeeze, press, jump, get tight. But what does that really mean? How much time do you spend developing a common language across your team and making sure that everybody within the team understands what that terminology means? And more specifically, what does that actually look like during the game? So that might be that you need to model that or get players to model that. If you get that level of understanding, you will develop that level of consistency, that level of coherency, and everybody will then be talking from the same page. And the last thing here is, as a coach, how do you check for understanding? So within those sessions, you should be aiming for something like 70 to 75% of the time with the ball rolling. So you don't want to be stopping the session all the time, because the players will get bored. They're there to play. They want to run around. They want to enjoy their session. So how do you check for understanding? Do you do it at the water break? Do you do it at the end of the session? Are you doing what we call drive-by coaching? So as the game is going on, are you whispering into players' ears or pulling players out so as you can check their level of understanding? And how often do you come back to these sessions and check for understanding? So if I'm doing this session now on creating chances for the next 3 or 4 weeks, is that it? Do we never come back to creating chances again? Or do we come back to it again in a couple of weeks or a couple of months? And what is my start point then for checking understanding? The whole idea, of course, is that we want players to become more autonomous. We want them to be able to problem solve within the moment. We want them to be able to apply their skills without the intervention of the coach. So again, I'm just going to pause there for a moment. I'm going to let you think about what's been said. I'm going to let you select 1 or 2 things and organize that within your own framework, and think about where you're going to integrate that into your coaching. So that's pillar number 4. And that brings us on to the next pillar, pillar 5. Now, this is really a continuation of pillar 4, only on a deeper level. This is a much richer, in-depth level to intelligence. This is game insight. So you're now thinking more as a specialist coach, okay? You are more confident in your delivery, and you want greater precision and greater accuracy from the performance of the individuals and the performance of the team. So as a coach here within this pillar, you are a creative thinker. So you are not just somebody that's prepared to take a coaching model, a game model, and just apply that. You're always thinking about molding it and shaping it in a different way. So obviously, the greatest architect here would be somebody like a Pep Guardiola. So he has used a false 9, inverted wingers. Now he's into inverted fullbacks, dropping the centre-back in between the 2 centre-backs, etc., using the goalkeeper as the 11th outfield player. They're the sorts of things here now that you're starting to think about, okay, how can we do something that's different to everybody else? And how can I integrate that into my coaching? So you will be a student of the game. You would love to collaborate with other coaches to develop your own understanding, to stretch your own thinking. You would be a coach that understands what a good friend of mine calls the inner game. What is the game within the game? So if you're coaching 18-year-olds and it's a game of 11v11, how and what are you doing to develop players' insight into understanding their game within the game? So a game of 11v11 is a game of 10 1 versus 1s with goalkeepers. So how do you coach players to gain dominance and the upper hand in 1v1 situations? And then the smaller games within the game, so the 2v1s or the 3v3s or the 5v4s or the 8v6s, how do you help players understand space and time, and how to create space, how to occupy space, how to attack space, how to gain those superiorities so the quality of the play manifests itself in more chances and more goals, and probably ultimately more success. And a coach here has great attention to detail. So this is a coach that would understand periodization as part of the planning process. This will be a coach that wouldn't just have a game model that has principles of play within the attacking phases or the defending phases or the transition phases. This will be a coach that also has a physical model and principles within the physical corner. This will be a coach that has a mental model and principles within the mental or the psychological aspects of the game. This will be a coach that would understand the principles of the social corner as well. So real attention to detail, to planning. So again, I'm going to pause there now. I'm just going to let you select one or two things out of all of that, pick the bones out of that and organize it in your own mind, and then think about where you're going to integrate that into your own coaching framework. So that's the fifth pillar, and it brings us round nicely to close off this circle, really, with the sixth pillar. And for me, this is probably the forgotten pillar, and one that is very much at the fore at the moment, and this is coaching craft. Now, what I mean by coaching craft is actually your ability to impart knowledge, or your ability to draw out of the individual player their own understanding on their own learning journey. So this is somebody that will be really, really authentic as a coach. And this really is where the science of football meets the art of football, or the art of teaching, the art of coaching. So the science of coaching meets the art of coaching. So this coach is somebody who can make what we call learning visible, make learning visible. So you don't assume that the players are learning within the session. You ensure players are learning within the session. So this will be starting again with the end in mind. What is the objective of this session or this unit of sessions? Making sure that the players understand that. What is our starting point? So again, if we're talking about creating chances, what is it that we already know about creating chances? Or what is it that we've already done about creating chances, rather than going right back to the beginning? Talking and thinking about how you make your sessions cohesive with small steps, thinking about the quality of the sequencing, thinking about the quality of the language, checking for learning, the quality of the thinking, the level of challenge, the quality of questions that you're asking your players to draw out the learning, so that they are empowered thinkers in the moment, in the game. This will be a coach that looks beyond the game. So you would maybe be looking at England hockey, who have been very successful in recent years, and understanding what they're talking about when they talk about the golden thread of coaching. This will be a coach that maybe listens to somebody like Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors, is it the basketball team, when he talks about creating a learning environment and empowering players. This will be a coach that has a real established coaching language around not just football and football specifics, but also pedagogy. This will be a coach who is really, really reflective, a coach that reflects on themselves, reflects on the quality of the sessions, the quality of the teaching and learning, somebody that separates themselves away from the emotion of their coaching, and can examine what it is that they do in the cold light of day. And then somebody that thinks about, okay, this worked well, I'll do more of that, or this didn't work so well, I need to adapt. So somebody who is really flexible, somebody who is adaptable, somebody who's constantly thinking about the quality of the learning. So again, I'm going to pause there for a moment. Just going to let you think about that, and I'm going to let you organize your thoughts there and think about what it is that you want to bring to your own game. And that brings us neatly and nicely to the end. So we started with your identity and we looked at the coaching environments. That really is the vision of the coach. That is your being. Why do you coach? Who are you as a coach? Then we moved to fluency and we moved to intelligence. And that really is around the game, coaching the game. So that is more about the doing. So you've moved from the being into the doing. And we've finished with 2 additional pillars. So we talked about insight, which is the deeper, richer knowledge and understanding. And we talked about the craft. And that really is your knowing. So we've gone from your being to your doing to your knowing. And that is the knowledge and the understanding of how to coach the person and how to coach the player. So in summary, I've offered you 6 pillars of coaching mastery, and I've shared my thoughts, which I hope have steered your thoughts for who you are and where you are as a coach and what your next steps will be to develop yourself. The one thing that I would urge you to consider is that if you were a farmer, you wouldn't just turn up on a day and plant some seeds and expect those seeds to grow. What you would do is you would spend a lot of time thinking about your methods and creating fertile ground to grow those seeds well. So I urge you all to think about your own coaching and to create fertile ground where you can unlock the potential of both the person that's in front of you and the player that's in front of you, to gain the successes that I'm sure that you aspire for. And I just wish you all good luck.